Hello everybody and welcome back to today's new video. And again, today's idea was something that I also wanted to try for quite a while, which is to try myself at traditional animation. However, when we're talking traditional animation, we're talking traditional, like literally with paper. And I don't know about you, but remember like those, I guess, behind the scenes of like old Disney movies, like from the Renaissance era, where, you saw how, these characters just come to life and how the animators like flip the pages and they kind of have like a light go through. Like, I wish I had something like this because I think it would have made the process a little easier on me and also made the animation look a little bit better. And I originally also thought maybe I'm gonna paint because when they do traditional animation back in the day with like the Disney movies, for example, or in general, I think they always had like a background that was like painted, and then you have all of those different layers on top of that, so you can almost like tell when you watch like those old movies how the background is almost like stagnant, and then only the characters are supposed to move, or only certain parts. Like, for example, you have trees that are painted with color, like painted somehow, but they don't move, and then like there's like one leaf or like one tree that is sketched that then moves, for example, and you can kind of tell the difference. So maybe this will be a series of some kind where I'll try to continue on with the story, and perhaps I really want to actually add a background, to see how that looks, and maybe try to build some sort of construction similar to the one that the traditional animators had, where it's like light coming from the bottom, almost like a frame of light, if that makes sense. Like, I think that would be really cool. And yeah, the original idea, or like I guess how this idea was birthed, if you will, is that I saw this paper laying around. I think it was at my parents' place, and this is basically like ultra thin drawing paper. And I think the reason why we have it, I remember it belonged to my dad, because I think he kind of like, I wouldn't say it's like a direct engineering degree, but kind of like he in school they basically also had to do like sketches of machines, for example, and for that purpose they would use this kind of paper. And I remember seeing it, and like immediately my first thought was like, oh my god, like maybe I can try some traditional animation, on little paper. And I did try it before, but I didn't film it. So this time around we're actually filming it. And ironically enough, I had such a hard time figuring out what I wanted to animate, like what kind of character. I'm like, what do I even want to animate? Like, I don't know. Like, I was so ambitious with this idea, and then I didn't have a basis for it. I was like, what's the story here? And so I just thought of a little dragon, because I guess like flying animation, like this little like flaps of the wings maybe would be a good start. And one thing that I actually enjoyed in this process is that, I don't know how to say it, but you kind of can allow yourself to be a little lazy when it comes to animation. And because I literally, like, most of the video you're gonna see I'm just copying, pasting, like basically putting, especially when it comes to the up and down movement, I basically started with two bases, like where the wings are more like open and the dragon is higher, and then when he like almost not quite closes them but a little bit closer for the other flap, and then he's a little lower. And then I could just, throughout the movements of the face, for example, or what I was like, that he sneezes was basically idea, and then a cute little dragon sneeze is fire, yada yada yada. And yeah, then basically just going back and forth with the up and down. Yeah. But definitely, I think if I had one of those like frames that the animators used, it would definitely be a lot easier because, mind you, this entire animation that I'm doing is like 10 frames. And obviously, when it comes to 10 frames, it's like actual paper. So it kind of stacks up a little bit. And what happened was is that, it just was a little bit messy because I didn't know where to put the paper. Would definitely recommend, which I mean I did, and I'm guessing that probably traditional animation they did this as well. It's just to give, put numbers on each of the pages, each of the like frames, because normally you have it automatically, like when you do it in the computer, normally, each frame has its automatically is given a number. But the paper doesn't do that for you. So before you, end up in chaos, start off with that. I would recommend you to start off with that right away if you want to actually try this yourself. But yeah, I think it's like a fun little exercise to do because, and also kind of like an escape for me personally, because, when it comes to technology, if you have followed me for some kind, you know that I kind of struggle with some of the software. And, I thought maybe before I get frustrated and will never try animation altogether, I might try something that I have control over, such as paper. So that was, sort of my thinking process, because I was kind of getting frustrated with the software I was using, because it was like, oh, I was supposed to do this. And here it's quite straightforward and not as frustrating. And yeah, also because for me personally, like tracing by hand with an actual pencil in comparison to like digitally, it's much easier. Like I still struggle with, I don't know, it doesn't make any sense, because to me it's like the exact same movement. Like here I'm drawing with pencil, and when I do the exact same thing on the computer, it does not translate the same way. Like it's generally, I don't understand why for me it's so difficult, or at least more difficult to draw digitally than on regular paper, because it makes sort of sense. I don't know. But that's another reason why I thought, I give this a shot. Do not get frustrated when animating on the computer, and just have some fun and have some control over it. And yeah, I think we're not quite there yet, but you're gonna see soon at one point of the video I will be making a little mistake, or I guess my brain just shut off. Like, it will be very fun to look at. I'm not sure if that it already starts with this frame, but essentially I guess I switched up the left and the right in terms of movement, because as I kind of hinted at before, the idea that this little dragon sneezes. As we can see here, this is the frame where basically he starts to sneeze. And how typically in cartoons and such, it's like, when they like sneeze very loudly, or like with a lot of power, or here, when he's like flying, that they kind of like swoosh, or because of shock of how strong the sneeze is, that they get moved into one direction. And that was what I was going for here, but I don't know, I think I kind of messed up. I guess here you can see sort of the weakness of the paper traditional sort of method, because I was like, I'm gonna be smart, in the similar way that I did, the up and down move. And I was like, I'm just gonna put one paper slightly above and one slightly below. And then I thought, if I put one paper more to the left, or was it the right? Yeah, no, more to the right, like you can see me doing here, then the dragon would end up more on one side. But I guess I didn't really think this through. Maybe I put the wrong paper to the right side, I believe. Yeah, basically, I think now that I look at it, that's the problem. I should have put the upper, so like the next frame where he actually is supposed to be more on the left because he sneezes and then he swooshes to the left side. It should have been that frame that should have been more on the right, so like basically the exact opposite of what I did. But I guess later on I realized this in a very painful way when I like try to, look at the animation. I'm like, huh? Like, why is it? Or I think already when I was drawing, I realized that it was so like on the right. I'm like, why is the movement that's supposed to go to the left? Like, why is it more on the right hand side than even, it's not even in the middle. If it were in the middle, it even would be like somehow okay, but it literally was like the opposite direction that it was supposed to flying into, and like the entire movement was based off of. So yeah, that was very painful. And I think, yeah, it was very sad. Definitely. I think that's also one of the cases where I feel like in digital media it's a little easier because obviously you don't have to, obviously I didn't have to start from scratch, but those particular frames that I drew incorrectly, I basically just traced them to other frame, like onto another sheet of paper, but in the correct position. And digitally you could probably just select what you drew and put it more on the left hand side. So I guess there's pro and cons for everything, but I guess overall that, digital animation is probably less time consuming, or else it wouldn't be as prevalent. Obviously, traditional animation, especially in this kind of traditional animation, because in general, when we think of, hand drawn, of course, when you draw it in a computer, it's still hand drawn because you still draw it with your hand. So that still counts, but this is even more, has, I guess, a different texture to it, a different vibe to it, because you actually have to do like with paper and colors, and it's not digitally, and just more time consuming, and also, I guess, material consuming, especially when it comes to the paper. I could not imagine, like, I did 10 frames, like this a minimal amount of movement. Like if you do it like an entire like hour length or over an hour movie, like that must be like worth books worth of like pages. Like I did 10 frames, it was already like so thick, and I had to like staple it because I wasn't able to flip the pages at the end, which I mean I struggled with that in general, but yeah. Here you can see my live reaction to I guess finding out that I messed up with the direction. Was like, what? Did I do that incorrectly? Yeah. It's very interesting. And oh no, I didn't realize yet. Oh great. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Thought that I discovered earlier, but no. I continued on with, how did I not see that I was completely off? Yeah, but I guess it makes sense because this is one of, I think, the second to last frame. But yeah, it's so funny to me. How do I not realize that the paper is like off the edge of the other? How do I not realize that I'm wrong? Oh my god, the confidence. But at least it was only, I think, 3 frames. Like, I think now the realization hit. There was a lot of, I wouldn't say silence, but a good pause of realization that I messed up. Now we got it. Now I got it that I messed up. Yeah. I just love it. It's almost like comedic to watch the disbelief. my brain's just like, what did I do? Why? But honestly, I feel like I retaliated pretty well. I mean, first I was a little like, I think you're gonna see this as well, where I was like trying to like turn it around. I'm like, maybe I don't have to redraw every single frame and I just turn it around and fix it. But I ended up having to basically, redraw. It was basically just whatever I've done before is just copy and paste and like, sketching that. But it was still kind of frustrating and it felt a little defeating because I'm like, I thought I was so smart using, that method of mine where we like move around like the frame underneath to create movement and blah blah blah. But yeah, I guess my brain was a little overwhelmed. Yeah, left and right, I guess, is difficult to differentiate for me personally. Yeah, so yeah, here you can see me basically redrawing all of the frames that I messed up, but it's okay. I guess the most important part is the end result, which we're gonna have. And I don't know how, like, this is also something that you're gonna see because I'm gonna show you like the little animation at the end, but I felt like it didn't look so good and I struggled so hard with filming it. In general, just this entire process, I'm like, how can I make this look good? How can you even see like each frame, each step, like the little animation coming to life properly? Because I obviously don't have like what these professional animators used to have, like these like tables framed with like a light shining from beneath. Like, I have no idea what they're called. I think it's really cool, and I love the way that it looks when they're in the animation process. But yeah, also kind of struggling with the fact that both the pro and the con of the paper is that the other frames shine through, so you could kind of see the other frames, and then it's kind of like a mixture. It's not like the clear, like not as clear as I wish it was, when you view the animation, that's like frame to frame to frame to frame, but almost like you can still see the other frames through because of how see through the paper is, which is also like an advantage because I could easily draw because I already saw the step that I did before. And I do wonder if the animators actually did use like see-through paper. I'm not sure, because I remember they also like flip the pages a lot, which I'm not sure if they do it just for the sake of the movement. I'm wondering. I guess I'll look it up after I did this, after I'm finished with this voice recording, but I wonder if they actually use, but I guess it has to be like the same kind of paper, like see-through. But yeah, anyways, here you can see me also doing like adjusting actually the animation, because I also realized that I kind of animated one frame a little bit, I wouldn't say too hastily, but basically what is sort of like a rule. Obviously you have these frames for a reason to lead the movement from one into the next. And with the fire, I just went from one little like small flame to like a huge fireball, but actually like fire breath, and then I changed the huge fire breath into like a fireball by also adding a frame in between where you have like a middle-sized fire breath to make it more realistic, to give it some time, because obviously that doesn't make any sense unless you make it like abrupt and funny, right? And yeah, we're onto, I believe, the last frame currently. Yeah, you see my really cool computer mouse. That's actually, for sharpening my pencil. I like my pencil sharpener. Really cool, isn't it? In the beginning of the video, I actually tried to hide it, but now it's making a guest appearance. But yeah, here we just, doing the very last frame. Was also my my glass frame peeking as we just saw, but yeah, I think I'll definitely at least I would want to continue this, or at the very least draw a background, paint a background for it. So maybe it's obviously easy, just use my acrylic paints, or maybe even my watercolors, which probably would only be considering that the dragon is flying, it'd probably be a sky or something. So I guess I'll make definitely a part 2. If I'll actually make it a series, I do not know. But yeah, we're basically finished, and I hope you enjoyed the final product, the final animation in it with different speeds, and seeing how this little dragon comes to life. So hope you enjoy today's video, and hope you'll enjoy the little animation and the final product.